Hi, this is the Black Bear Prepper, and today we're going to go over why Mini 14s suck, or that's what everybody says. Okay? Now, all guns have disadvantages. Some guns are better than others at certain things, and certain guns are better at other things. Now, if most of you have seen most of my videos, I love Mini 14s. I do. I always will. I love them. So, what is the Mini 14 based off of? The Mini 14 is based off the M14 or M108 rifle that is based in .308. Okay? That was used by the military for many years, and as far as I still know, it is still being used by the Army in specific roles. You know, and I don't want to get too much into that. If I'm wrong on that, it was used within the last 10 years in the military. It is a great rifle for what it's good at. It's reliable. It tends to fire when you pull the trigger. Now, I found that the Minis are just as reliable as the M1A. So there's lots of people out there that say the M1A is 100 times better rifle, and I love the rifle, and there's no problems with it. I disagree. Okay, I think the Mini 14 has improved on a few things that the M14 did not do well. One, the top guard here. And this top guard on this Mini 14 has a cover over the rod right here. Your charging handle and rod here. On an M14, you can actually take your hand, reach up and grab the gun, or reach over if you're left-handed and put your hand all the way over it, and the gun not operate. You can actually slow down the action enough to where it will malfunction. They put this guard on here. I love this particular guard just for that reason. It does really well in that particular role. The other thing that I like about the Mini 14 over the M14 is it has a self-cleaning gas piston system. Now, what I like about that is there's no adjusting. There's no reason to adjust it. But the other thing I like is that it doesn't dump the gas out of the bottom of the gun. So if you're in a prone position, all the gases are being dumped into the stock of the rifle, not onto the ground. So if you are an M14 lover, in my opinion, you also have to love the Mini 14 because it is basically enacting the same weapon. Now there's a few things that the M14 is a great rifle. I love them. I've shot them for years. I do like them. I like Mini 14s because they shoot 223 rounds. 223 rounds are lighter. And I don't know about you, but carrying around 300 rounds of .308 is one, expensive, two, it's hard to do. Now, just before we really get into the video here, all of these guns have been safety checked. The mags that look like 30-round magazines have been pinned because we are in California, and all of the guns do not have folding stocks or any of the other evil features that are legal in California. Now, why do I believe that these guns are better than, let's say, an AR or an AK? Now, in the past I've said they're better, and I believe for me they are better. For you they may not. And the reason I say that is because there's features I like on the Mini better than I do on the AR. I don't like ARs. I never have. I've shot them, and I have not put millions of rounds through an AR, but it seems like every single time I go shooting, there's an AR sitting next to me that does not fire properly. And what I mean by that is you pull the trigger and it goes click for some reason. I don't know why, but my Minis right out of the box work perfect because of a piston system. I do not like the ARs. Now there's a few systems out there that are coming out now that are great systems that have piston-driven AR systems that work great, especially in the shorter barrel configurations. So that's a drawback in my opinion, that most of them are gas operated, and you'll get guys who'll say I've shot thousands and thousands of rounds through my Minis or through my ARs and I've never had a problem. And that's probably true. Okay? And I think the vast majority of them work fine. I think that it is awful weird though that we have a Mini, excuse me real quick. that if we deal in mini world, there's a few things that minis do well. They tend to fire right out of the box, okay? Meaning that if I was to go down to the store right now and had to pick a rifle to go into a ranch, combat, WROL type situation, whatever that is in your mind, zombie apocalypse. If I had to pick a rifle off the shelf, if I had to run in and grab one off the shelf, it would be a mini. I have never had a mini malfunction out of the box. And in fact, I've had very few malfunctions in the whole time I've shot minis. Now, these particular minis are not mine. These are not guns that I own. I never put guns that I own on our videos. So, I do love the minis though, and I've shot them for 20 plus years. The Mini has a few drawbacks, and I think a few pluses in those drawbacks. Some people would see the fact that the scope mounting capabilities have to be mounted directly to the receiver. I see that as an advantage. It lowers my scope to barrel ratio and makes the gun shoot slightly flatter. Now, that's my opinion. But when you're shooting up close out of a scope on a rifle, when you take the distance between the center of your scope to the center of the barrel, that's going to be how much that gun is going to shoot off at up close distances. The lower you can get that for long distance shooting is going to be a plus. It's going to affect the rifle less. And I found that to be true on these rifles, that they tend to shoot fairly good all the way out to 250 yards. Really reasonable. Now, I have a lot of people that say, well, there's only one way to mount it. Nowadays, they come with a Picatinny rail that's on there, and you are limited in where that Picatinny rail can go. It can only go in the center here. Has it affected my shooting? No, because I shoot scopes or I shoot without scopes. I don't shoot any of the aim points and a lot of the other, red dot type sights. If you do, that's something to think about, because red dot sights should actually be put up a little farther. And if that is the case, and you live outside of California, this guy right here allows you to mount a scope in the scout position. And that actually works really well, because this does bolt down, and it is one of those things that I do, if you like running in any of those type scopes, you can. So that's the ATI stock, if you're wondering, but you can't put them on in California because they're evil. So the other thing is that people always say, well, you can't get any other scope rings for them. This particular set of scope rings I have on here is a 30 mil set of aluminum scope rings. I've had no problems with them. They've worked right out of the box. Actually, a little bit better than the steel scope rings that I have on some of my other guns. Are they the best scope rings in the world? I don't know. I don't think that these rifles are accurate enough to be a sniper type rifle. I don't think that's what they're for. They are and I'm going to use battle rifle in the terminology of not the size of round, but the idea that it is designed to go to work. These have been used all over the United States and truthfully all over the world in a police type situation. They're still being used by the sheriff's departments all over the country. If they had massive problems, they would not be used for that. But if you look even at the San Bernardino shooting that just happened here in California, if you look at the cops that are down there on all the videos, I would say a good 80 to 90% of them are carrying stainless steel Mini 14s. Now, where do I see the Mini 14 fitting into the AR, AK Mini 14 realm? Are they as accurate as an AR? I believe so. When you're dealing with a gun that is under the $1,000 range, I see them shooting. I've seen this particular gun right here shoot sub 1 MOA groups. This particular gun, I don't have bipods, or I've never seen it shoot any of those type deals, but I've seen this particular gun shoot below 2 MOA. About 1.25 inches is the best it's ever shot. Now, we had the owner of this gun brought some targets to me to kind of show of what he was looking at. Now, if we can see here, This group right here is after 80 rounds, and you're seeing a, you know, a 4-shot group and 1 flyer off to the side. Now this group right here, even in the worst case scenario, is right under about 2 inches. The best case scenario, it's a little over 1 inch, about 1.5 inch group. At 100 yards, and that is doing 80 rounds. This was the last shot done after an 80 round shot. Now was that consecutively mag dumping? No. But if you add on, we'll talk about it in a second, about that. So he brought over that one, which I thought was fairly reasonable. Now, one of the ones he did here was this guy right here at 50 yards. Now 50 yards I think is where we can really get an idea of how well the gun shoots, especially with this setup. This is a primary arms ACS reticle, and this is the ACSS reticle, and it is the 1:6 version. I like this scope. I have one of these on one of my other rifles, and I recommended that this person put one on. This was actually a friend of mine recommended it to me. I put it on one of my rifles, and he put it on one of his. It works awesome. Like it a lot, works very well. This is the group he got at 50 yards. Now, that's not bad shooting by any terms. Do I think you could get as good with an AR? Yes. Do I think you could get as good with an AK? I've never seen it. There's lots of guys online that say they can. I've never seen it done. I've seen groups, it tends to be that the Mini 14 falls in between the accuracy of an AR and an AK. Overall, I believe them to be 2 MOA rifles. Now, this is another group here, and again, at 50 yards, he was able to shoot within that 1 inch range with a flyer off to the side. So, the gun can shoot very well. Now, I asked him, what were those groups shot off of? And they were shot off a bench with no rest, no bags. So he was shooting freehand with just the rifle itself. As you can see, this one's set up with a 45-degree forearm grip on here, because we're not allowed to have pistol grips in California, and just the standard overmolded stock that comes with the rifle. Now, this particular rifle, to get those groups, I think you have to do the same thing you do with an AR. ARs do not come out of the box, in my opinion, very accurate at all, because their triggers suck. The worst part on a Mini 14 out of the box is the trigger. This particular rifle, when I got it from I did the trigger job on this one, and I did the trigger job on this rifle here. When they brought them to me to have them done, I asked, we tested them. This rifle right here came out of the box at right around 7.5 to 8 pounds is what we were getting on average. An incredibly atrocious trigger. It's now down to about 3.5 pounds just from polishing it and getting all the nicks and junk out of the trigger. You know, this gun right here came from the factory with about a 4.5 pound trigger, which is about where they say the average are. They usually go anywhere from about 7 to 8 pounds all the way down to about 4 pounds. It's luck of the draw. And I recommend that you go shoot a couple when you buy them and see if you can get closer to that 4 pound range. It's pretty easy to tell the difference between 7 pounds and 4 pounds. So this rifle, again, we set the trigger at about 3.5 pounds just from polishing, getting all the junk off the trigger. This is another rifle that we did. This particular rifle has had a trigger of about 6 pounds, and we try to bring them down to right about 3.5 pounds with polishing. And we're just knocking off the junk that's already on them. I've found most ARs to be right around that same era. Anywhere from 6 to 4 pound triggers when you buy them, and they tend to be very, gritty triggers to shoot with. They're not an accurate weapon at that point. Now you'll have people tell me, oh, well, I've got a special trigger in my gun. Okay, that's fine. All we're comparing is, are the Mini 14s, do they suck? Are they useless? Are they junk guns? No. Okay. I have put, when I first got my first Mini, when I was about 16, I had no idea about how to clean a Mini 14. Didn't have any idea at all. No idea how to even take one apart. I shot thousands and thousands of rounds through one, and it never had a problem. And one day somebody asked me, hey, do you know how to clean your gun? And I said, I have no idea. So I sit there, and when I took off the wooden stock that was on the gun, if you pop it off, there's a whole area in here that was full of black fouling all through this area, all the way down in here, because that's where the fouling actually happens. It's shot into the stock. It had actually imprinted, the different parts of the gun were actually stuck in there, and it looked like somebody had taken wet sand and packed it into the gun. And it was just built up in there, and the gun was still working. Now that same amount of fouling ends up in an AR receiver into your bolt carrier group. That's what we want out of the gun. To me, I'd rather have it in the stock. Plus, it makes it a cooler gun. This gun tends not to get way hot back up here in this area. And with one feature that I do recommend every Mini 14 have is putting either a Mo rod on the end of the barrel here or a True Shot Technologies barrel stabilizer. I like the True Shot because they are cheaper. The guy that does them is very good. This is the True Shot, tends to be a little bit smaller of an item here, and I even put them on my heavier barreled guns. They seem to work very, very well. A few things that I do to my minis to make them what I would consider just as good as ARs, if not better, is to add a few things. One, if you watch my video, I have a bolt release on mine. So just like the ARs, this is a bolt release. And it is just a screw that we've threaded into the bolt stop. And allows me to go ahead and dump it as I rock a magazine into the gun. So if I'm sitting there and I'm putting my magazine in and I'm rocking it back, I can reach up with my thumb and land the round back into the gun. Does it make it a little faster? Yes. So think of it in those ways. I do like that. I put a True Shot barrel stabilizer on all my guns. They're about 60 bucks. They're amazing. Now, as far as adding other items to the gun, because this is another one, Picatinny rails are all over ARs. I add the Magpul sling mounts so that I can go ahead and disconnect my slings here. I add pieces of Picatinny rail all over the guns wherever I need them. I just drill holes and put them where I want them.